Catherine's boot touched frozen wood as the train's whistle faded into white silence. She clutched the crumpled letter Silver Falls, not Redemption Creek, and watched her only escape disappear into the blizzard. The platform stood empty except for wind and regret. Her carpetbag felt heavier with each passing second. The next train wouldn't come until the day after Christmas. 3 days stranded with no money, no shelter, and a mail-order husband expecting her 50 miles north. "Ma'am," she turned toward the voice. A man stood beside a freight wagon, broad-shouldered beneath a worn coat. A small boy held his hand, head tilted slightly as though listening to the world rather than seeing it. "You waiting on someone?" the man asked. His tone carried no warmth, only tired courtesy. "I made a mistake," Catherine said. Her voice came steadier than she felt. "Wrong station." The boy's face brightened. "Are you lost?" "I suppose I am, sweetheart." The man's jaw tightened at the endearment. "Next train's not till the 26th. Town's 4 miles south, but nothing's open Christmas Eve." Catherine looked down the empty road, then back at the departing train tracks. Snow began falling harder. The boy shivered despite his thick coat. "Papa," the child said softly. "She sounds warm. Like Mama did. Like fresh bread." The man went still. Something flickered across his face. Pain. Longing. Fear then vanished behind stone. "Samuel, hush now." But Samuel reached toward Catherine's voice with small, careful hands. His eyes didn't focus quite right. Catherine understood then the boy was blind. "I'm Jacob Thornton," the man said reluctantly. "Thornton Ranch. My housekeeper left to visit family for Christmas. I need help with cooking. Basic housework. 2 days. I'll pay your train fare north after." It wasn't charity. It was transaction. Catherine recognized the distinction and appreciated it. "Catherine Moore," she replied. "I accept." Jacob lifted her carpetbag into the wagon without another word. Samuel climbed up, then extended his hand to help Catherine. His small fingers were warm despite the cold. "God sent you," Samuel whispered as they settled onto the bench. "I just know it." Jacob snapped the reins sharply. The wagon lurched forward across white prairie. In the distance, a grand house rose against gray sky, all wood and prosperity. But somehow it looked as cold as the snow surrounding it. Catherine pulled her thin coat tighter. She'd come west seeking a future with a stranger. Instead, she'd found two. Sometimes the wrong road held more truth than the right one. The house swallowed sound. Catherine's footsteps echoed on polished floors where laughter should have lived but didn't. Jacob gave her a brief tour with words that held no feeling. Kitchen, pantry, your room upstairs. Each sentence landed like a door closing. Samuel navigated beside them, touching walls and door frames with the practiced ease of someone who'd memorized every inch of home. The furniture was expensive velvet chairs, carved tables, oil lamps with crystal chimneys. But dust covered everything. The curtains stayed drawn. A Christmas tree stood in the sitting room, decorated with care yet radiating loneliness. "Mrs. Davies left instructions," Jacob said, gesturing to papers on the kitchen table. "Meals, routines, supplies, simple enough." Catherine scanned the notes. The housekeeper's handwriting was neat, efficient, tinged with concern. The final line read, "Mr. Thornton is a good man carrying heavy grief. Samuel needs joy. Please try." In the pantry, Catherine found an apron hanging on a hook. She touched the fabric-worn cotton, faded blue, smelling faintly of lavender. A woman's apron, unused for years. "That was my wife's," Jacob said from behind her. His voice had gone hollow. "Anne's." Catherine turned. "May I wear it?" He stared at the apron for long seconds, jaw working. Finally, he nodded once and walked away. Samuel appeared at Catherine's elbow. "Papa doesn't talk about Mama much, but I remember her singing." "Do you know any songs?" "A few," Catherine said gently. "Will you sing while we set the table?" She chose Silent Night because it felt safe, peaceful. Her voice was soft but true, Samuel hummed along, his small face peaceful as he counted out silverware by touch. Jacob appeared in the kitchen doorway. He went rigid as stone, color draining from his face. "That's enough," he said hoarsely, then disappeared. Samuel's hand stilled. "That was Mama's favorite," he whispered. "Papa can't hear it without hurting." Later. Dutch the ranch foreman stopped by to drop off firewood. He was 60-something, weathered as leather, eyes kind beneath bushy brows. "You're a brave woman taking this job," he said quietly while Jacob was outside. "Mr. Thornton's been dead inside since Anne passed. 3 years now. Still can't hear her favorite carol without falling apart." "What happened?" Catherine asked. "Childbirth. Lost both her and the baby." Dutch's voice softened with old sorrow. Jacob blamed himself. Wanted another child. Got death instead. Been living like a ghost ever since. That night, Catherine lay in the guest room listening to the house settle. She heard footsteps pause outside Samuel's door, heard Jacob's voice murmuring something too quiet to distinguish. Then Samuel's voice, clear and certain in the darkness. "Dear God, Papa's so lonely. Please send us a mama for Christmas. Please." Amen. Catherine pressed her hand to her heart. She understood now. This wasn't just employment. This was a house of ghosts desperately needing life again. A man can build the finest house in the territory and still live cold if his heart's buried 6 feet under. Dawn broke gray and hesitant. Catherine woke before sunrise, habits from farm life guiding her. She unpacked her carpet bag by lamplight, a Bible from her mother, a photograph of her parents on their wedding day. One good dress saved for meeting her intended husband. Meager possessions for a mail-order bride heading toward an unknown future. She touched the photograph. Her father's weathered face smiled up at her, forever frozen in that moment of hope. He'd died 2 years ago, leaving her mother to remarry a hard man who ruled with cruelty disguised as discipline. Catherine had chosen dignity over dependence. She'd answered an advertisement from a widowed shopkeeper in Silver Falls. She didn't know if he'd be kind, but she knew staying meant suffocation. Her father's last words echoed, "Sometimes God answers prayers by putting you on the wrong road so you'll find the right one." Movement below pulled her from memory. Catherine descended to find Samuel already in the kitchen, navigating with perfect confidence despite darkness. He'd dressed himself shirt slightly crooked, one sock higher than the other, and was feeling along the counter toward the stove. "Good morning," Catherine said softly, not wanting to startle him. Samuel's face lit up. "Miss Catherine, I wanted to help make breakfast." "That's very kind." She guided his hand to a chair. "But let me handle the hot stove. You can set the table again." They worked in companionable silence. Samuel counted out 3 plates, 3 cups, 3 sets of silverware with careful precision. When he finished, he turned toward Catherine with heartbreaking directness. "Will you stay forever?" Catherine's throat tightened. She knelt beside his chair. "Samuel, I'm only here until after Christmas. Then I have to go to Silver Falls. There's a man there expecting me. A man I promised to marry." "But why?" Samuel's voice trembled. "Papa has lots of room, and we need—" He stopped, lower lip quivering. "I prayed so hard." "I know, sweetheart. Did I pray wrong? Should I have asked different?" Catherine pulled him into a gentle embrace. "You prayed perfectly. Sometimes grown-ups make promises before they know where they truly belong. I have to honor my word." Samuel didn't cry, but his small body shook. He pulled away and walked carefully back to his room, shoulders rigid with disappointment. Jacob appeared in the kitchen doorway. "What happened?" "The truth," Catherine said quietly. "He asked if I'd stay forever. I told him I couldn't." Jacob's expression remained unreadable. "Good. Better he knows now." But his hands clenched at his sides, knuckles white. Later, Catherine found Jacob in the barn. "May I wear your wife's apron? Mrs. Davies didn't leave one for me." He turned slowly. The apron hung over her arm. Blue fabric bright against her dark dress. "Why would you want to wear that? Because it's here. Because it shouldn't gather dust when it can be useful." She met his gaze steadily. "Because sometimes honoring the dead means letting their things serve the living." Jacob stared at the apron, then at her, then away. His jaw worked. Finally, he nodded once and strode past her into morning light. Catherine tied the apron on, feeling its weight settle around her waist. The scent of lavender rose faintly, a ghost's perfume. A blessing. A burden. She'd made her choice. 2 days of giving this child every ounce of love she possessed. Even knowing goodbye would destroy her. He deserved nothing less than authenticity. The best cowboys know when to hold the reins and when to let the horse find its own way home. Flour dust caught lamplight as Catherine's hands worked dough. Samuel sat at the kitchen table, listening to her hum, his small face transformed by something Jacob thought he'd never see again pure. Unguarded joy. Jacob stood in the doorway watching them. He'd come inside for coffee. Instead, he found himself frozen, unable to look away from the domestic scene unfolding like a memory come to life. Catherine showed Samuel how to knead bread, guiding his small hands through the rhythm. Push away, fold back, turn. Feel how it changes. "It's getting smooth," Samuel said, wonder in his voice. "Like river stones, exactly like that." She laughed, and the sound filled spaces that had been silent for 3 years. Samuel laughed too, flour dusting his nose. Jacob retreated before they noticed him. His chest felt tight, something cracking beneath ribs that had been frozen solid. Later, Catherine opened the curtains in the sitting room. Sunlight poured through, harsh and revealing. Dust motes danced. The Christmas tree suddenly looked less lonely. "Papa never opens these," Samuel said. He stood beside her, face tilted toward the warmth. "He says light hurts his eyes." "Maybe his eyes just forgot how to adjust," Catherine replied. She touched Samuel's shoulder gently. "Show me your room." Samuel led her upstairs with confidence, one hand trailing along the wall. His room was neat but sparse: bed, dresser, trunk. On the nightstand sat a leather-bound book. Catherine picked it up carefully. Braille primer. Embossed letters raised beneath her fingertips. "Papa tried teaching me," Samuel said quietly. "But he'd get frustrated, or sad. We stopped trying. Would you like to try again, with me?" Samuel's face blazed with hope. "Truly, truly." They spent the afternoon at his small desk, Catherine's fingers following his across the raised dots. Samuel absorbed everything with fierce concentration, his whole being focused on learning. Jacob found them there at dusk. He watched from the hallway, unseen. Catherine's patience was infinite, her encouragement genuine. Samuel glowed under her attention. "You're doing wonderfully," Catherine said. "Your mother would be so proud." Samuel beamed. "Do you think she can see me from heaven? I think love doesn't stop just because someone dies. It finds new ways to shine through." Jacob turned away, throat burning. That evening, Dutch joined them for supper. The old foreman settled into his chair with a satisfied grunt. "Ain't seen that boy smile like this in 3 years, he said, watching Samuel devour Catherine's stew. "You got a gift, ma'am?" "I just listen," Catherine replied. "Children know what they need if adults pay attention." "Papa doesn't always listen," Samuel said matter-of-factly. "He's too busy being sad." Silence fell heavy. Jacob's spoon clattered against his bowl. "Samuel, that's enough." "But it's true." "I said enough." Samuel's joy dimmed. He turned his face down. Retreat beginning. Catherine spoke quietly. "Sometimes sadness is so loud it drowns out everything else. Even love. Jacob met her gaze across the table. Something passed between them, understanding. Challenge. Recognition. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. But his voice lacked conviction. Don't I? Catherine's eyes held steady. I lost my father. My mother remarried a cruel man rather than face her grief. I understand what fear does to people. Dutch cleared his throat. More stew, anyone. The tension broke. Conversation resumed carefully, skating around the truth that sat among them like an unwelcome guest. Later, after Samuel slept, Catherine found Jacob on the porch. Snow fell gently, silver in moonlight. You're good with him, Jacob said without turning. He's easy to love. That's what Anne used to say. His voice caught. About both of us. Catherine moved beside him, not too close. Tell me about her. Why? Because she matters. Because pretending the dead don't exist doesn't honor them. Jacob was quiet so long Catherine thought he wouldn't answer. Then words began tumbling out, halting at first, then faster. Anne's terrible singing. Her stubborn chin that Samuel inherited. The way she'd dance while cooking. Humming off key. How she'd wanted another baby despite the doctor's warnings. How Jacob had agreed because he'd thought love could conquer anything. How wrong he'd been. She died in this house, he said finally. In our bedroom. I can't go in there anymore. Where do you sleep? The foreman's quarters. With Dutch snoring through the walls. Catherine's heart ached for him. Samuel needs his father. Samuel needs more than I can give. He needs you to try. Jacob finally looked at her. His eyes held depths of pain that made Catherine want to weep. And when you leave, what then? She had no answer. The question hung between them like snow suspended in moonlight. Sometimes the hardest ground yields the sweetest water. You just got to dig past the stone. Cookie dough squished between Samuel's small fingers as Catherine guided his hands. Jacob entered carrying firewood and froze. This tableau was too beautiful. Too much like the family photograph God had torn in half. Papa, Samuel called. We're making cookies. Come help. I have work. Please. Samuel's face held such hope. Just for a little while, Jacob couldn't refuse his son. He set down the firewood, washed his hands with movements too careful, and sat at his own kitchen table like a stranger. Catherine handed him a misshapen piece of dough. Your turn? I don't know how. Neither does Samuel. That's the beauty of it. They worked in silence, broken only by Samuel's chatter. The boy described his cookies in elaborate detail. This one looked like a horse. That one resembled Dutch's hat. Catherine and Jacob caught each other's eyes, sharing the secret that Samuel's cookies looked like lumpy blobs. But they were beautiful anyway. Jacob accepted a cookie Samuel pressed into his hand. It's for you, Papa. I made it special. Thank you, son. They sat there as dusk gathered, eating warm cookies that tasted like hope. Catherine watched Jacob's face soften, watched the fortress around his heart develop cracks. She saw the man beneath the grief-gentle hands with his son, eyes that carried unbearable loss. A soul imprisoned by fear. She recognized a kindred spirit, someone who'd chosen survival over living. After Samuel went to bed, Catherine made coffee. Jacob lingered by the fire instead of retreating to his quarters. They sat in companionable silence, flames crackling. Why did you become a mail-order bride? Jacob asked finally. Why does anyone hope for something better than what was? Catherine wrapped her hands around her cup. My mother's new husband was cruel in small ways, daily erosions of dignity. I could have endured it. But enduring isn't the same as living. So you chose a stranger. I chose possibility. She met his gaze. What about you? Why shut yourself away? Jacob's jaw worked. Because grief is safer than hope. Hope hurts worse when it dies. Hope is already dead if you're just surviving. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Catherine's voice carried steel beneath softness. You think you're protecting Samuel by staying numb, but you're teaching him that love isn't worth the risk. It's not. Isn't it your wife loved you? Samuel loves you. That love didn't disappear when she died. It's still here, waiting for you to acknowledge it. Jacob stood abruptly. You've been here 2 days. Don't presume to lecture me about my family, then stop presuming your son is fine with half a father. The words hung between them, brutal and true. Jacob's hands trembled. For a moment, Catherine thought he'd storm out. Instead, he sank back into his chair. What if I love again and lose again? His voice broke. I can't survive it twice. Catherine moved beside him, close enough to touch but not touching. What if you don't love? And lose anyway? Time steals everything eventually. But love, that's the only thing that echoes after we're gone. I'm afraid. I know. So am I. Jacob looked at her then. Really looked. Saw past the mail-order bride, past the temporary housekeeper, to the woman who'd walked into his frozen life and refused to let him hide. He reached across the space between them. His hand hovered near hers, trembling, almost touching, then pulled back. But the gesture said everything. Words couldn't. Outside. Snow fell heavier. Inside. Something fragile and terrifying began to grow between two damaged souls who'd forgotten how to hope. A broken fence can be mended stronger than before. If a man's got the courage to pick up the hammer. The train ticket lay on the kitchen table between them like a death sentence. Jacob's voice was formal, distant, nothing like the man who'd shared his grief by firelight hours before. You've been most helpful. Miss Moore? He pushed an envelope toward her. Triple what I promised. The train leaves tomorrow afternoon. You'll reach Silver Falls by evening. Catherine stared at the ticket, her packed carpet bag already waiting by the door. I see. It's for the best. For whom? Jacob's jaw tightened. For everyone. Clean breaks heal faster. Do they? Catherine's hands clenched in her lap. Or do they just hurt differently? The kitchen door swung open. Samuel stood there in his nightshirt, small face crumpling as understanding hit. You're leaving tomorrow. Samuel. Jacob began. You said after Christmas you promised. Catherine knelt. But Samuel stepped back. I have to go, sweetheart. There's a man in Silver Falls expecting me. A man I promised to marry. But you could stay here. Samuel's voice broke. You could stay with us? Why won't you stay? Sometimes grown-ups make promises before they know. I don't care about promises. Tears streamed down his face. I prayed for you, God sent you, and now you're leaving anyway. He ran. His small feet pounded up the stairs. A door slammed. Muffled sobs echoed through the house like accusation. Catherine stood slowly. He'll forget. You said, it's better this way. You said, he will forget. Children are resilient. Children don't forget love, Mr. Thornton. Her voice shook with quiet fury. They remember every moment of it, every kindness, every betrayal. Your son will remember that you chose fear over fighting for happiness. I'm protecting him. You're protecting yourself. Catherine grabbed her shawl. And you're teaching him that people who love you leave. Is that the lesson you want him to carry? She walked out before Jacob could respond. Hours later, Dutch found Samuel outside without his coat, sobbing in the snow. The old foreman carried him inside, wrapping him in blankets while Catherine prepared warm milk with honey. I prayed wrong, Samuel whispered against Dutch's shoulder. I asked God for a mama, but I didn't say which one. I thought he sent Miss Catherine, but maybe God made a mistake. God don't make mistakes, boy, Dutch said gruffly. Then why is she leaving? No one had an answer. That night, Catherine lay awake listening to the house settle. She heard Jacob's footsteps pause outside her door, heard his weight shift as though he might knock. The silence stretched. His footsteps retreated. She found herself at the window, staring out at the snow-covered prairie, somewhere north. A shopkeeper waited for a bride who no longer wanted to come. Here, a man drowned in fear, and a child grieved for a mother not yet lost. Catherine pressed her forehead against cold glass. "Show me what to do," she whispered. "Please." Outside, she saw a figure moving through darkness toward the small fenced area behind the barn. "Jacob!" she realized, moving toward Anne's grave. She watched him kneel in the snow, watched his shoulders shake with silent sobs. Some grief was too private to witness. Catherine turned away, giving him that dignity. But understanding crystallized Jacob wasn't choosing fear over love. He was drowning in both, unable to reconcile loving again with loyalty to the dead. A coward dies 1,000 deaths before his time. A brave man faces his fear once and lives free. The house breathed grief like a living thing. Catherine sat in the shadowed kitchen, her packed carpet bag by the door, wondering if God had made a mistake sending her here after all. Christmas Eve. Tomorrow she'd leave. Tomorrow a family would shatter again, and she'd carry the weight of their breaking north to a loveless marriage. Her Bible lay open on the table, but she couldn't read through tears. "I thought this was your answer," she whispered, "but I've brought only more pain." Footsteps on the stairs. Catherine went still as Jacob descended. Not seeing her in the kitchen's shadows, he moved to the sitting room, stood before the Christmas tree with its ornaments catching firelight. He touched a small wooden angel, weathered with age. His voice came rough and broken. "I don't know if you can hear me, Anne." He spoke to memory, to hope, to the woman 3 years buried. "I don't know if heaven works that way, but if you can..." Catherine held her breath. "Our boy is so lonely. I've failed him by trying to protect him. I've taught him that loving means losing, and that's the cruelest lesson a father can give." Jacob's voice cracked. "There's a woman here, Catherine. She's kind and brave, and Samuel loves her already. I think God help me. I think I might love her too. And it terrifies me." Catherine's tears fell silently. "Because if I let myself feel again," Jacob continued, "if I let us be a family, and something happens, I can't survive that darkness twice. I can't." He drew a shaking breath. "But I realize now I'm not surviving. I'm just existing. And that's not what you'd want for Samuel. You'd want him to have a mother's love again. You'd want him to see that life continues, that joy returns, that your death didn't kill love itself." He knelt by the tree, broken and praying. "So if you're listening, if there's any way to send me a sign, tell me I'm not betraying you by loving again. Tell me it's okay to let her stay." The wooden angel slipped from its branch. It landed in Jacob's palm without breaking, as though placed there by gentle hands. Catherine stepped from shadow. "She already told you." Jacob spun, saw her, realized she'd heard everything. The fortress around his heart crumbled completely, leaving only a man desperate for permission to live again. "Samuel has been telling you all along," Catherine continued softly. "Through his prayers, through his faith, through his certainty that God sent me here." "I'm so afraid," Jacob whispered. "I know. So am I." Catherine moved closer. "But fear isn't living, and your son deserves a father who's alive, not just breathing. What about Silver Falls? Your promise." "I made that promise before I knew where I truly belonged." Her voice steadied. "Before I knew a blind boy who sees more clearly than anyone. Before I knew a man brave enough to grieve but terrified to hope." Jacob stood. They faced each other across 3 feet of space that felt like miles. "I don't want you to go," he said. The words came raw, honest, terrified. "God help me, I can't let you go." "Then don't." Catherine's heart hammered. "Ask me to stay. Really ask me. Stay. Jacob crossed to her, took her hands in his. They trembled against hers. Please, not as hired help, not as temporary, as my wife, as Samuel's mother, as the answer to a prayer I was too broken to pray myself. Yes. Catherine's tears fell freely now. Yes, I'll stay. Outside. Snow fell soft and steady. Inside, two damaged souls found courage enough to try again. The night's always darkest just before the dawn. But you gotta live through the darkness to see the sun. Wise. Samuel woke to impossible sounds, his father's laughter, real and warm, mixing with Catherine's voice. He thought he was dreaming until the scent of cinnamon reached his room. He dressed quickly, fingers fumbling with buttons, navigated downstairs by memory and hope. Found them in the kitchen, Catherine teaching Jacob to make cinnamon rolls, flour dusting both their faces, her hand over his guiding the dough. They were smiling. Together. Papa. Samuel's voice came small, afraid to trust. Jacob turned. His face held something Samuel hadn't seen in 3 years, joy. Son, come here. Samuel moved forward carefully. Strong hands lifted him, and suddenly he was held between them. Catherine's warmth on one side, his father's solid presence on the other. I need to ask your forgiveness, Jacob said, voice thick. I've been so afraid of losing love again that I almost threw it away. Miss Catherine has agreed to stay if you'll have her, and if she'll have us. Samuel's heart felt too big for his chest. Truly, forever, truly. Catherine knelt so they were eye level. She took his small hands in hers. I was supposed to marry a stranger in a town I've never seen, but God had different plans. He sent me to the wrong station so I could find the right family. I told you. Samuel threw his arms around her neck. I told Papa God sent you. You did. Jacob's voice broke. You had more faith than your old man. They held each other there in the kitchen, flour-dusted and tear-stained and whole. Outside, Christmas morning broke clear and bright. Later, they gathered around the tree. Catherine gave Samuel a hand-knit scarf she'd worked on in secret. He traced the stitches with reverent fingers. You made this for me. I did. Jacob presented Catherine with a small velvet box. Inside lay a pearl necklace, delicate and beautiful. It was Anne's, he said quietly. She'd want you to have it. She'd want our son to have a mother's love again. Catherine's hands shook as she fastened it. I'll honor her by loving you both well. Samuel held up his own gift, a piece of paper covered in braille dots. I made this yesterday. It's a picture. Catherine ran her fingers over it. 3 figures holding hands. Above them, Samuel had written in painstaking letters, Our family. It's perfect, she whispered. Dutch arrived for Christmas dinner, took one look at their glowing faces, and grinned. About time you came to your senses, boss. Better late than never, Jacob replied, pulling Catherine close. They shared the meal at the long table that had been lonely for 3 years. Laughter filled the house. Stories were told. Samuel sat between his parents, the word finally true again, and thought his heart might burst with happiness. As dusk fell, Jacob raised his glass. To wrong stations and right families, to prayers answered, to the woman brave enough to stay, to second chances, Catherine added, and blind boys who see more clearly than anyone. To Mama, Samuel said simply. Both of them. Outside, snow fell gently. Inside, love made room for both memory and new joy, honoring the past while embracing the future. The good Lord works in mysterious ways sometimes. He answers prayers by making you miss your train. The preacher's words echoed through the sitting room. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Samuel stood between them, holding both their hands. His smile brighter than winter sun streaming through opened curtains. Jacob kissed his bride gently. Samuel cheered. Dutch wiped his eyes and pretended it was dust. 1 week had passed since Christmas. 1 week of transformation so complete, the house itself seemed different, lighter, warmer, alive. Catherine kept her mail-order contract letter in her Bible as a reminder. She wrote to the Silver Falls shopkeeper, explaining with honesty and apology. His reply came kind and gracious. He'd found another bride, a widow from Denver. Perhaps we were both meant for different paths. I wish you every happiness. The new rhythm settled quickly. Each morning, Catherine taught Samuel Braille. Jacob joined the lessons, learning alongside his son. 3 heads bent over the primer together. This one's love. Samuel traced the dots carefully. Love. You're getting good at this. Jacob said, That's because Mama's a good teacher. The word came naturally now. Mama. Catherine's heart swelled each time Samuel said it. She tended the house with care, opening curtains daily, placing herbs in the kitchen window, filling rooms with bread smell and singing. The ghost of grief didn't vanish. It simply wove itself into the fabric of continuing life. One February morning, Catherine walked to Anne's grave. She knelt in melting snow, planting spring bulbs around the headstone. Thank you, she said quietly, for loving them first, for teaching them that love is worth the risk. I promise to honor that. Jacob found her there. He knelt beside her, touched Anne's name carved in stone. I talk to her sometimes, he admitted. Tell her about Samuel, about you. That's good. She should know her son is thriving. You didn't replace her. Catherine, you gave us permission to live again. They planted the last bulbs together, pressing hope into still frozen earth. Come April, daffodils would bloom. Life continuing, beauty returning, seasons turning as they always had and always would. Samuel's prayers changed. Where once he'd begged desperately, now he thanked with simple joy. Thank you, God, for making Mama get on the wrong train. You're really good at this. The boy who'd navigated by touch alone now moved through life with confidence. His laughter echoed through rooms. He learned quickly, asked endless questions, told elaborate stories while Catherine cooked and Jacob pretended to review ledgers but was really just watching his family with wonder. Late January evening, snow fell gently outside. Catherine sat by the fire mending Samuel's shirt. Jacob read aloud from a Western novel, voices for different characters making Samuel giggle. Dutch smoked his pipe in the corner, occasionally interjecting humorous commentary. The mantel clock chimed 8. Samuel stirred from where he'd been dozing against Catherine's shoulder. His small, warm weight perfectly fitted against her side. Mama, he said sleepily, the word now effortless and true. Yes, sweetheart. Tell me again about the day you got off at the wrong station. Catherine stroked his hair, soft as silk beneath her fingers. Well, it was Christmas Eve morning, and I thought I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Jacob caught her eye over Samuel's head. His expression held everything: gratitude, love, wonder that God's mercy had sent them exactly what they needed in the most unexpected way. Catherine continued the story, Samuel never tired of hearing. How the train had left her stranded. How a blind boy had heard warmth in her voice. How a broken man had offered reluctant shelter. How prayer and providence had conspired to build a family from pieces. And then what happened? Samuel prompted, though he knew every word. Then I stayed. Catherine said simply, forever and truly. Samuel smiled, satisfied, and nestled deeper into her embrace. Outside, the camera pulled back through the frosted window. Inside, lamplight glowed warm against the darkness. A family found through faith and wrong turns sat together in perfect contentment. Fresh snow covered old tracks. Stars shone clear and bright over Redemption Creek. In the spring, daffodils would bloom around Anne's grave, and life would continue its patient, persistent march toward healing. Sometimes the best destinations are the ones we never planned to reach. The best trails aren't the straight ones. They're the ones that lead you to where your heart was meant to. Settle,